Have you ever looked at your calendar, your desk, the carefully constructed routine of your week, and realized with a sudden chilling clarity that you are starring in a movie someone else cast you in? You hit every mark. You delivered the lines everyone expected. You meticulously followed the blueprint laid out by your parents, by your peers, by society's quiet, crushing consensus of what a responsible, successful life is supposed to look like on paper. And then, one random morning, you wake up, stare at the ceiling, and realize, this isn't my life at all. Let me tell you about Sprout. In the quietest corner of his mind, far away from the noise of obligation, Sprout had a distinct, unyielding pull. He wanted to make films, to capture raw stories through a camera lens, to build something tangible and true. But desire rarely matches the gravity of expectation. His parents didn't want him gambling on uncertainty. They wanted the architecture of safety, prestige, a predictable corporate ladder, and a trajectory that never caused a single raised eyebrow at a dinner party. They mapped out a life where risk was treated like an emergency. So Sprout complied. He memorized the expectations, secured the credentials, landed the office job, and played his role down to the last syllable. On paper, it was a masterclass in conventional success. In execution, it was a slow, suffocating erosion. He walked a terrain built by someone else's blueprints, wearing shoes that pinched with every step, driven entirely by the quiet terror of disappointing the people who relied on his predictability. Until the morning he woke up, looked at his own reflection, and understood that the life in front of him belonged to a ghost. So Sprout did the hardest thing imaginable. He stopped. He didn't have a transition plan. He didn't have a financial cushion or a safety net. He just pulled the emergency brake on a routine that was slowly draining his pulse, leaving nothing behind him except an entirely blank canvas. He finally picked up a camera and began. The reality of it was brutal. There was no instant validation, no cinematic montage where everything clicks into place by week 2. It was clumsy, erratic, and deeply humbling. The metrics flatlined at 0. Old acquaintances looked sideways at what he was attempting, whispering through polite smiles. The early work was rough, unpolished, and riddled with beginner's errors. Yet, beneath the awkward execution and the quiet judgment of the crowd, something profound happened. For the first time in his existence, he wasn't performing. He was breathing. It was messy, it was stressful, and it made zero logical sense. And it was the first time he actually felt alive. We spend lifetimes constructing elaborate defenses against that exact kind of exposure. We tell ourselves we are waiting for the right moment, the right resources, the moment when the odds are cleanly in our favor. We frame hesitation as patience and inaction as strategy, but underneath those rationalizations sits a much sharper truth. The resistance rarely comes from a lack of capability. It comes from the heavy, suffocating awareness that stepping out of line invites an audience. The human mind operates like an internal theater, running a continuous, exhausting film where the primary antagonist is always the observer in the third row. The ego builds an entire fortress out of pride, terrified of being caught at the bottom of the mountain while still clumsy, still unformed, still learning how to balance. It demands a guarantee of elegance before it permits an attempt. It whispers that if you cannot arrive as a master, you shouldn't arrive at all. We spend decades fighting for validation from rooms that were never designed to hold our actual dimensions. We twist ourselves into manageable shapes, hoping for an acceptance that requires the erasure of our real selves. The moment you decide to break away from the script, a fundamental truth becomes glaringly obvious. People are going to have opinions regardless of what you do. Whether you remain safely locked inside a predictable routine or risk everything to build a path of your own. The commentary never stops. They will misunderstand your motives, misinterpret your pivots, and occasionally mock your stumbles. The turning point arrives when you realize their commentary carries zero operational weight. Judgment is rarely an objective measure of your capacity. It is almost always a reflection of someone else's unspent hesitation. When you stop outsourcing your self-worth to an audience that changes its standards with the wind, external noise loses its leverage. Look closely at the cultural landscape right now. Everywhere you turn, people are saturated in automated polish, sterile corporate formatting, and immaculate, filtered facades. We are drowning in perfection and starving for substance. That is why realness has become the only currency that actually clears the market. The creators, builders, and artists who cut through the noise aren't the ones who hide behind an impenetrable armor of competence. They are the ones willing to show up unedited, with unfinished work and open hands. Vulnerability is no longer a liability. It is the baseline of genuine connection. When you stop contorting yourself to fit an external mold, you stop attracting the wrong crowd. More importantly, you begin to magnetize the exact people who resonate with your actual frequency. Sprout didn't solve his entire existence in a single afternoon, and the background hum of doubt didn't magically vanish. Apprehension doesn't disappear. It simply stops holding the keys to the vehicle. You can spend decades managing hypothetical outcomes, calculating pathways through a future that hasn't happened, and waiting for a permission slip that is never going to arrive. It's your choice to either wait for guaranteed comfort, hoping things will somehow align on their own, or for once, to take a chance on faith. Hope is just a beggar walking through the fire. Faith is what leaps over it. Progress doesn't begin when you finally become bulletproof. It begins the moment you decide that being real is more important than being flawless. Leave the smoke and mirrors behind and risk being seen in all your unpolished, brilliant reality. If this helped you untangle some of the things that have been holding you back, let me know in the comments and hit subscribe to join us next Sunday. For now, take care and be brave.